Welcome back. Well, this is the final video in my series where I'm recording an entire song here in GarageBand on the iPad, and I'm doing it using just 4 tracks. So we have our 4 tracks recorded. We've done any editing that we needed to do. We've got 4 tracks that we're pretty happy with now. So now comes the time to sweeten the mix, to do the mixing and to get the final mastered version out of the iPad and into a format that we can distribute. So I hope you've enjoyed the series, and let's get stuck in and finish this song off. So we're now at the phase where I'm going to do the final edits and mixing. What I'm going to do here is just go through some of the things that I am doing and will do. I'm not going to do the full mix because that's going to take a lot longer than I'm going to show in this video. But what I will show is the techniques that I'm using to make sure that I can mix this and get a really good sound. So just a bit of a recap so far what I've done in the first 5 videos, and feel free to go back and watch those if you haven't. We recorded 4 tracks. We recorded a guitar and vocal track, a second guitar and vocal track, some background vocals here, and then finally the lead vocal. I then actually went and re-recorded all of those and did a little bit of sweetening, and you can see here a few little edits where I've done some overdubs, and now we're ready to actually mix this song. So I'll just play the song quickly just to give you a feel for what it sounds like. Always trying to hold on, and I always feel. So the track itself, 2 guitars, left and right. So the first track here is over to the left with the lower vocals, so it's called Git plus low vox. We've got the Git plus high vox, which is over to the right in panning, which we'll show you in a sec. We've got the background vocals, and then we've got this last track, and I've left this unnamed because I wanted to actually show how to name a track, because it's a really good hygiene habit to get into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap and then tap again, tap on rename, and then I can come in here and change this from its radio ready default microphone setting and call this lead vox, which I will do now. There we go. Okay, so we have our 4 tracks ready to go, and what I'm going to do is just take a quick look at the settings that I currently have on each of these and do a few little adjustments. And the main adjustment that I want to do is to actually fade this out at the end. So I'm going to show you how to use automation. Once I've got the static volume at about the right level, we can automate to actually show how to fade out and also to drop down the volume in some of these sections as well. So we'll tap on our little icon up here to bring out the track settings. So as you can see here, we've got the volume set there. Our track pan is over about halfway to the left at the moment, and we've got some compression happening. But to actually see the main details here, we can tap into our plugins and EQ. So what we've got so far, we don't have a noise gate on because we had a pretty decent signal. We've got the compressor set at -20 on the threshold, ratio of 2.6 to 1. The attack time 17, the gain, so we haven't actually had any makeup gain, and we've got that compressor mixed at 100% at the moment. So some of the things that I'm going to look to do here is to maybe adjust that compressor. We can't, in GarageBand, unfortunately, automate the compressor, so we need to find a level where it's going to be about right for the whole song, and then we can just use our fader, so our volume automation, to bring the volume up and down. So one of the drawbacks, but not a massive thing because we still have that. We have the effect EQ, which is one of these default GarageBand has as part of the actual recording setting, which we can either just turn on or off. So again, slight limitation, but we'll play with that and see if it sounds better with that on or off. We have the track reverb here. So at the moment, we have the settings, as you can see there, with the spread and the time. It's got a high cut. It's got 30% of the wet and 90% of the dry signal in that reverb at the moment. So that's another thing that I'm going to play with and just adjust and play back a few times to get right. And then the visual EQ down the bottom here, if we tap on that, the moment there's no EQ on this, but what we can do is actually adjust the EQ for the low the mid, and the treble. So what I'll most likely be doing is doing cuts as opposed to boosting, because what I want to do is find any frequencies that are really pushing out that I don't want and reduce those down. Again, it's only 3 bands that we have here, and it's not exactly the most precise EQ, but it does give you the ability to just make those tweaks and carve out some space in the track. And then we have our gain over here, so we can actually adjust the overall makeup gain. If we do some cuts and we need to get some volume back in, we can do that here within the EQ. And we also have the ability to have the analyzer either on or off. So if we play, hear that something else will go. So that analyzer will show us the waveform as we play the track, and then we can see what frequencies we have within there and make those adjustments. The same sort of setup we have here. So you can see we've got different settings for this second guitar, just because it was a different sound. It was a higher guitar and the vocals were higher, so I've made some adjustments to the compression settings and the reverb settings that we have for this one. And I'm not sure if so I haven't actually done any EQing yet. So that's another thing that I'll be working on to actually make sure that this track is sweetened up and that everything is sitting nicely in the mix. Background vocals have the same sort of thing here. So we've got a lot of these plugins here which have literally no settings but just the ability to turn on and off, including things like enhanced tuning, which the jury's out on for me. A lot of these automatic configurations we have in GarageBand have tuning enhancement. They have these stereo delays, these tape delays. Sometimes it sounds good to have them on, sometimes it doesn't. So it's a trial and error thing to turn those on and off, which I'll be doing as I go through, just seeing what sounds the best and what's going to give the best overall sound for that particular track. And finally, the lead vocals. Again, we've got the similar sort of setup here. We've got the compressor and the track reverb settings, so just a little bit of reverb on that track, and the same default settings down here that we have. So that's the main things that I'll be doing here, is going through and just getting a good static mix first of all, which I've kind of done with the faders. So I've got the right volume levels to where I think that they sound good together for the majority of the song. And then what I'm going to do is adjust these, add any plugins that I need to. So I can actually add new plugins. If I tap on edit here, I can remove any of these and I can actually add in a new plugin. So if I did want to add a different delay or something to the track, I can go ahead and do that there. And then the most important thing, once I hit that stage, so let's just pretend that I have, for the sake of this video, volume automation is going to be the thing that I want to do here, because there's some parts of this song where I really want to bring the sound of either a guitar up or down, or really push the vocals up when they're a bit quieter and drop them down a bit in some other parts. So I'm going to use an example before I finish up here for volume automation, because it's one of the things that people are really interested in doing and it's really relevant for this song. So for this particular track here, I'm going to solo this guitar and low vocal track, and as we head towards the end of the song, just drop it into this spot here. I'll play this part, and what you'll notice is that it's quite a loud, sort of lower frequency part, and then it changes to, it goes right up the neck of the guitar and goes to quite a high melodic riff that ends the song. And it also has some background vocals, and I want to bring up the volume of both of those here at the end. So we'll play it back. So that part of the track, apart from that really bad cut, which I do need to do a little edit around, so I'll need to do a little fade out and in on this cut here, where it goes from the one recording to the other. You may have heard a little click as it went through there. I'll then need to bring the volume up so that this is slightly higher. And then what I want to do with all of these tracks at the end is actually fade them all out. So I want to do a gradual fade to fade all 4 tracks out as we go to the end. So what I need to do is tap on the track here, go to my automation, and a piece of advice, don't add any automation until you get to the end stage, because once you have automated the volume, this fader will then become completely useless. You then have to do all volume adjustments here. So make sure you have your static mix right before you come in and do automation. So I'm going to pinch to zoom right in here. And the first thing I can see is this little spot here, which is that little click that we heard. So I'll just play that bit. You can hear that little click between the two recordings. So I could just grab this and, well, I can't do it right now. I could just grab that and just pull that handle back and get rid of that part. But what I actually just going to do here is, for an example, I'm going to turn on up the top there so I can add a volume automation point. I'm going to tap once here beforehand, once right at the spot, and then once on here. And I'm going to grab this middle one, and I'm going to pull it right down until it's barely audible. And then what I actually want is, when it comes back in, I want it to actually be increased volume. I want that to happen right at the start there. So again, I can zoom, don't do what I did there. Undo is your friend. So I can take this across, and then I didn't actually want this extra point, so I can tap it to get rid of it. And now let's hear what this sounds like now that we've done that change. We'll hit done. So it has reduced the noise of that little click. I probably need to do a little bit more fine tuning to do that, but it's sounding okay. You can see we've got the little waveform in behind there. You can, sorry, not waveform, you can see the little automation curve that's been put in place. And the most important thing is that the volume has increased. So I'm just going to play this a little bit through so that you can hear the difference. So you can hear there that not only the guitar, but the vocals, which is what I really wanted to bring up, has increased in volume, which is really good. The final thing is that I said I wanted to fade out this song. So the final sort of version of, that's a repeating kind of passage there, is I'm gonna stay but you can go, I'm gonna stay but you can go, I'm gonna stay but you can go. It goes through till about there. If we just unsolo that. Out the door, I'm gonna stay but you can go, I'm walk right out the door, I'm gonna stay but you can go, I'm walk right out the door, I'm gonna stay but you can go, I'm gonna stay but you can go. So that's the last walk right out the door, goes to there. So we want the end volume to actually stop there. So what I want to do is I'm going to tap back on this waveform. I'm going to go back to my automation, and you can see here that that's the point where we want the volume to be 0. So I'm going to tap to create a point. Firstly, I'm going to turn that on. So that little padlock there, just it locks you, which means you can't add a bunch of points accidentally. But once it's on, and now I tap, I'm going to get a point, not quite the spot I wanted. Need to just adjust it. So there it is. And then I need to drag that down. But what I actually want, I don't want it to start fading out from the very start. I want it to start fading out for about the last probably four or five bars. So I'll not do that. Missed it again and again. We'll drag that up and sit that back up at the same level at 6 plus 6 dB, and then it'll ramp down there. So if we play that now, we'll hit done, hit play. Walk right out the door. Walk. You can go. I'm gonna stay, but 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 you can go. There you go. So it goes right down to 0 at the volume level. Now, what I do need to do is do this on every track. I'll actually do that at the end, but I'm going to just do it now and then probably undo it again just to show you how that works and how that will sound. So unfortunately, there's no way to do a global fade down here unless I basically completed the track as it is and then pushed them all out into a separate stereo track and then faded that track. But it's probably easier to just do it right here in the mix. So what I'm now going to do is not knock the iPad flying like I just did, but I'm going to unsolo that one again. And let's go through with each of these tracks, and we'll just do a very basic automation move on each. So we can turn on automation up the top there. And what we basically want to do is basically, we want to mirror each of these tracks, put it in about the same spot, and yep, slide it down. Tap again, slide, carefully slide it down, and then the final, so easy to do, undo that. The final track, tap it at the end, tap it in the spot, and slide down to 0. So it's not perfectly lined up there. Oh, it's not bad. Not perfectly lined up there. I'll need to just sort of tweak those and move those around, but you get the idea. I'm going to hit done. We've now got volume automation on each of those tracks. And what I was saying before is that we've now basically made these sliders useless. As soon as these sliders have a yellow circle around them, you can no longer actually use them to change the volume. You have to use automation. And that's so that you don't move everything and make it a volume that can't actually happen. So at the moment, this volume that goes down to 0, if I tried to move the slider down, it wouldn't be able to put the volume down lower than 0. So if you're wondering why it does that, that's the reason. Anyway, let's hear and see if this fade out actually works for this track.
Walk right out the door. 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 Walk right out the door.
Right, not bad at all. So, but you can see that in a couple of minutes, we were able to add in those quick automation changes, get that fade out set up, and now when I do the final mix down and export of the track, we're going to have a nice fade at the end. So thank you for watching. If you've been throughout all these videos or just been watching this one, the next video will be the final released song. So you'll be able to have a listen to how it finally came out when it was mixed down and exported out of GarageBand here. Hope you were entertained and did learn something from this, and definitely worthwhile doing something like this sort of challenge where you're limited by not only having 4 tracks, but also having GarageBand on the iPad. It's a really powerful DAW, and hopefully you've seen that from this. This is the same across an iPhone or an iPod Touch as well. So if you've got any devices like that, you can jump in and record your own song and get a really quality sound with just a little bit of extra effort. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.